we should also not let people who don't plan a war very well talk about supporting the troops when they don't even give them what they need. And they don't give them what they need, and then when they come home, they're a day late and a dollar short on providing them with the health care that they desperately need, having come back from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, or the Iraq War. And I'd tell you, I did vote for that $87 billion, even though I voted against the Iraq War, and I want to tell you why. The letters we got in our office from our people overseas about the Humvees not being properly armored, about the not having oil for a machine gun, not having a battery for the sight on a gun. I mean, you can't believe it. It was bad enough to hear they weren't given toothpaste. But even the stuff to wage war. So I felt we had to support them. And I believe that the Republicans are getting away with just an unbelievable scam to somehow pretend that they are the ones that care about the troops more than we do. I think, if anything, it's the opposite. You know, more than anything, though, to be the patriots that we are and to show the country that we are, we have to be clear that national security is our top priority, that we believe that it is a danger to every one of our children if we do not stop this terrorist threat, that we must stop the network that attacked us on 9/11. How you go about doing that is an important discussion. But we will not win. We will not succeed if the American people somehow believe the absurd, which is that somehow we don't care about that. Got to talk about it all the time. But we are serious about the terrorist threat. We don't just use slogans like the president does, invoking 9/11 whenever he doesn't have an answer for anything. That's a terrible disservice to the American people. And it's coming again, this terrible tragedy in London this week. They will try to figure out a way to manipulate that in a way that suggests, now, you see, that shows that what we did in Iraq was right. Of course, for all we know, it was people that were trained in Iraq that came up and did it. You know, so you know that they're going to try to do that. I'd say to President Bush, who said in his recent speech, which I thought was one of the worst speeches I've ever heard, I'd say to him, he said that some people have forgotten the lessons of 9/11. I would say he never learned the lessons of 9/11. In fact, I think there's a country song, correct me if I'm wrong, it's on the Patriotic CD, I saw it on TV, that has a line that says, "Have you forgotten bin Laden?" I wonder if the president's forgotten bin Laden, when he becomes so focused on Iraq and forgets about this international threat. In fact, one of the most stunning things I've ever seen was a document that I was shown a while back, a couple of years ago. It was on the State Department website, signed by George Bush. His name was on it. And it was from 2 months right after 9/11, and it was a listing of the 45 countries where Al-Qaeda was operating at the time, according to our government and our intelligence. A lot of countries. Afghanistan, and Uzbekistan, and Ireland, and Great Britain, and the United States. Guess what country wasn't on the list? Iraq. I mean, can you imagine? Their own document. Well, this is one of the reasons that when the president gave his famous speech trying to tie this all together in October 2002, I was the first senator to go to the floor and go, you know, this doesn't really add up in terms of Al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein. You know, Saddam Hussein was not the kind of guy that liked these kind of folks running around in his country very much. He was kind of a control freak. The idea that he would want Al-Qaeda floating around in his country doesn't make any sense at all. But they went ahead anyway, as we know. And I would have a lot to say about how disturbing the premises of that war were and how disturbing it is to the American people. But now we're there, as they say. But the problem is the president wants to intimidate us into not doing what we have to do to get out of there in an appropriate way. They say the whole issue is two choices: cut and run or stay the course. I say that there's something in between. I say that there's a way, and I've offered a resolution to do this, to ask the president to give us a timeline, to tell us what is the mission. What are the stages of the mission? What has to happen in terms of training troops and training police and getting a constitution ready? And what time frame will that take? And what time frame can we expect with flexibility to bring the boys and girls home. What's wrong with a timetable to do that? Does anyone really believe that the terrorists are going to just stop trying to kill us in Iraq if we announce a timetable? In fact, I was there with Senator McCain and Senator Hillary Clinton. And I asked one of the generals, I said, tell me off the record, honestly. This is one of the top people, one of the top 4 or 5 people. I said, if we announced a timeline, what would that do? He said, nothing would take the wind out of the sails of the insurgents better than showing that this is not intended to be a permanent American occupation. That's what's really going on in Iraq. That's what's wrong with the president's policy. That's why we have to reject his idea that there's only one way to go. And on our Progressive Patriots Fund website, progressivepatriotsfund.com, we have a petition that thousands of people have signed in support of our resolution. We need your help on that. We need you to help convince both Democrats and Republicans to sign on to what is a modest request that the President provide some leadership and some vision of when this can end for the sake of our people and for the sake of the Iraqi democracy. Being a patriot, though, also means that we stand up for the rights and the liberties that have made this country great as we fight terrorism. You can do it at the same time. I believe in that. And that's why, as I told people during the campaign when my opponent came after me, that's why I voted against the USA Patriot Act, because I read it. I took the unusual step for a legislator of reading the darn thing. Now, I don't read every bill, but I figured the country had just been attacked. This is a few weeks later. I'm the chairman, as I was. We were in the majority for a few weeks. Remember that? I'm the chairman of the Constitution Committee. I read this thing, and I see stuff like your library records can be demanded through a secret court, and the judge has no discretion to say no. There is no requirement at all that there be any proof you've done anything wrong at all. They just have to give it to the FBI. Now, maybe you trust those guys all the time. There are many good people there. But give me a break. That's not necessary or right to fight terrorism. Same thing goes for searches and seizures of your home, unreasonable searches and seizures. There is something called a sneak and peek provision. Now, I don't object to the idea of a sneak and peek search where a judge says, fine, you can do this for 7 days because this person might escape or there's some evidence we've got to get at. But what the bill does is allow unlimited time frame when you are not given your notice that I believe you are entitled to under the 4th Amendment to the United States Constitution in the Bill of Rights. Now, I was alone on this at the beginning. The only senator to vote against it, but I'm not alone anymore. Some 375 communities, many legislatures, and others across the country have passed resolutions to change the act. And we do have a way to do it. There is a bill called the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act is basically the provisions that I sort of mentioned and some others that we need to fix. The library provision and others. It is a bipartisan bill. The lead author of the bill is Larry Craig of Idaho. He's a board member of the NRA. John Sununu of New Hampshire. His dad was the chief of staff to George I. I'm on there. Dick Durbin. This is a genuine bipartisan effort to inject some sanity into this situation. So again, progressivepatriotsfund.com, we have a petition that we would like you to sign to support the SAFE Act, and we need it now. This is coming to a head. We need to fix that bill, because in this country we can and will stop terrorists and keep our freedom too. That's what we have to be able to do.